Today, we're going to show you how you can build an executive analytics agent using Claude Cowork, Bauplan MCP, GitHub Actions, and Linear. We will cover the Bauplan executive questions with the MCP project, setting up our docs, our Linear, and our GitHub, prompting the agent in Claude Cowork, and triggering Linear, GitHub, and the Bauplan MCP. The first thing we want to do is go to Bauplan's GitHub. You can see here we're in the examples projects folder, and we have the executive questions with MCP project. This project is designed to use Claude Cowork as an interface. We will then use Linear as a ticketing system, and then GitHub will be involved to create issues and then to trigger Claude again along with Bauplan to create new pipelines or tables. The persona for this project is the idea of an executive asking analytical questions on data. And each question has two paths. Path A is the answer already exists. So a table in the lakehouse holds the data the question asks for. The agent is going to query it and return the result. The agent writes nothing and reviews nothing. Path B is the answer does not exist yet. So no existing table answers the question, but the data may still be just one query away. The agent does two things in sequence. It runs the query, returns the result to the executive immediately, so they're not waiting. It then files a linear issue that hands the work of turning that query into a permanent pipeline off to the automated agent. The executive only sees the answer, and the machinery underneath, whether a direct query or the issue filing, is invisible to them. The way this loop closes is it files a linear issue for path B, and the following will happen automatically. Linear will sync the issue to GitHub. A GitHub action picks it up and runs Claude against this repository. The agent reads the issues and all of the associated contents docs in this project. It validates the pipeline with a Bauplan dry run. Then an available engineer would review the request, check the correctness, and merge. And then on merge, a scheduler, which isn't provided, would pick up the new pipeline, materialize the gold table on main. From that point on, the same question hits path A, the table exists, and the agent queries it directly. Looking at the folder structure for this repository, in the template folder specifically, which we will be cloning to our own repo today, you can see here that there's a Claude MD. There's also a GitHub workflow that is going to trigger the action of Claude in GitHub along with Bauplan when a GitHub issue is created. There's also a docs folder. That's where we have the end-to-end decision logic. We have the how to communicate results to the executive. We have a recipe for creating the linear issue. There's also a semantics markdown. And then there's a medallion architecture and pipeline rules in Lakehouse MD for how we build these gold tables and pipelines when we need to. And finally, there is a source folder within that. There's a pipelines folder where silver and gold models can be stored that are built by this project. When working with this project, we actually want to go ahead and clone it somewhere else into another repo so that we can add our own Anthropic and Bauplan keys. I have cloned and moved the template folder, which is in the original Bauplan project, to one of my personal repos. Beyond that, there are a couple other details we want to handle. Going to the settings section, under secrets and variables in the actions menu item, we want to add our Anthropic API key and our Bauplan API key. Then going to the actual actions menu item, under general, we want to click allow GitHub Actions to create and approve pull requests at the bottom of that page. We're now ready to move to the next step. Now let's move over to Claude Cowork. In Cowork, we want to create a project for this. Now you can just click on the project in the left-hand menu here and you can start a new project. I've actually already set this project up and I'm going to go through it with you and show you how you will do it. So here you can see I've got the project called Executive Analytics Agent. And on this page, I'm going to show you what we want to add to this project per the GitHub repo. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the set of instructions that we saw in the repo README file. Here you can see we're adding it, and we will simply save those instructions. We're then going to add the GitHub repo I created into the context for this project. This way, it'll have all of the docs and folders and source files that it needs to look at when the executive has a question about the data. You'll need to also set up a couple different connections. One is to connect to Bauplan's MCP through Claude Cowork. You can see here we've got the Bauplan MCP already installed, but to do that is just like it showed in the README, we create a custom connector and we put in the name and the remote MCP for the Bauplan MCP in there. The only thing we need is to install the linear MCP, which is a standard connector you can simply search for and install. Moving over to linear, there are a few steps we need to set up here as well. First, we want to create a new team. We're going to also create a new project. As you see here, I have one called CEO, and we want to connect that project to our team. After we've done that, we want to integrate GitHub into linear. You can see here in step 3, we'll go to settings and then integrations, and then we will go and integrate our GitHub repo into linear. I have already integrated the GitHub repo here, but another step is to configure the branch format so that generated branch names avoid forward slashes. You can see here, I went with username identifier title. That's an important step that needs to be handled. Let's look over the docs that are in this project. The first thing we'll look at is the Claude MD, and it's relatively straightforward. What we'll end up doing is updating some of the terminology and the names that we want in that is going to meet our requirements for our Bauplan setup. The next one is the semantics model. Not much needs to be changed here because we're going to use the base TPCH data that the project initially sets up with. Then we've got the lakehouse. This is where I will make a couple updates to make sure I have the namespace updated correctly for my project. The linear markdown file is just all the details that the MCP needs for the linear step to that: the username, the team name, the schema, the priority, the status, the assignees, and the project name. Then from there, we've got the workflow, which is how the agent is going to understand how to talk and chat back with the executive based on the question that they give. And the last one here, the Claude YAML file. This is part of the GitHub workflow, and it's what the GitHub action is going to run when we have a GitHub issue that is created through a linear ticket. Let's have a real quick look at the data that we're going to be asking questions on. In Bauplan, there is a setup TPCH set of tables, and this is a known set of tables for doing data benchmarks. We've got customer, line item, nation, orders, parts, supplier, region. These are all normalized tables that can easily be joined together, and it should be rather simple for an agent to figure out how to work with these. We also have our semantic MD that gets deeper into explaining what these tables are. Okay, so now it's time to try out our executive agent. I'm going to give it a prompt that says I need a table of line item count sold by customer. And we're going to pass it along and watch it work. You can see here getting namespaces, getting the tables, verifying bronze tables and looking for aggregate gold models. It's looking at the table schema, creating a SQL query, and now it'll run the query to get the line item count by customer. Looking at the documentation, we offered it before doing that. Great, and it's offered us a table here, and here's the full result that spans for the range of the data. You'll see here it says that this query pulls directly from the source tables, and it's not yet formalized as a permanent table in the lakehouse, and asking if we'd like to file a linear issue to convert this into a reviewed pipeline. I will tell it to go ahead and create a linear issue. Hopping over to our linear, we can see that the linear issue has been created. There's a new ticket. And if we go over to my GitHub repo where I have this, we will see that an issue has been created in my GitHub for that same linear ticket. And in the action section, we have a GitHub action automatically running Claude with Bauplan's MCP. And finally, if we go over to Bauplan's UI, we can go to the jobs and we can see the job running. And after waiting for that to finish, it's all done. We have a successful GitHub action ran. There's a number of things that happened during this action that we can see here. But more importantly, if we go over to Bauplan's UI, we can see that the job was successful and that we have a new pipeline created for when this question is asked again by the executive. A fantastic way to show an end-to-end project where we work with both the Bauplan MCP and a coding agent to ask questions over our lakehouse.